We are virgins no longer.
So a little fun fact about Greece.
In a boat, we're Americans. We're going to spend money. And at the risk of sounding morbid,
The oldest travel influencers on the podcast scene at some point here. So Chuck and I are happy to take your calls. Well, if I had a secretary, we're separate but equal. Someone has to like me best. Enough money and time, you can do anything you want in this world.
the man, the myth, and legend.
I got a Volvo.
Not a political statement.
Travel like something is potentially going wrong. Extra underwear. You can't wear shorts everywhere.
Chuck decides to move to France.
Well, first of all, let's just say this. Everybody get your passports. Who's coming? I'll fight you.
I'm not trying to be funny. They speak the language.
Today's my last day. We're just going to shut down right here.
We spent 4 days of the cruise in our cabins dying.
And if you're sick, don't travel. Ever handsome, ever friendly, ever wonderful. It's not that I don't like children.
She's very picky about everything but her men.
I do believe I proclaimed for the spirit that day. Because I don't wear pajamas.
And last week on Life in the Baggage Claim.
Hey folks, you're about to start episode 20 of Life in the Baggage Claim. And this is a nice little milestone for us to celebrate. 20 episodes seemed so far away when we started this, and look at us now. Thank you for your continuing support. And if you have not, we hope you will subscribe and join us on this journey. So here we go on episode 20, our interview with the amazing author and fabulous person, Tina Coleman. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Life in the Baggage Claim. We are here today with my co-host, Chuck Longerbeam, the ever handsome, ever fabulous, and ever, I should say the next word, but I won't till later. And then we have our guest today, who is Tina Coleman, the author of 50 Fabulous and Fuckable. And I'm going to repeat that. That's 50 Fabulous and Fuckable. That's all of us on this screen fit into that category. Okay, I'm just saying. She's a traveler. She's a solo traveler, right? And she's been living in different places outside the U.S. She's an American, but she's made the smart move in some ways to find other refuge. She's spent times in Mexico, and she's now in Medellin, Colombia. She's joining us here today to bring her unique energy of what it's like to be at this stage in life after you've heard us do the last few episodes where we went on a rant. Why not bring somebody else in to talk about it? So here we go. Welcome, Tina. Is there anything you want our guests to know about you before we get going?
Well, you already covered where I've been. I was a massage therapist for 20 years before my career was ended by a car accident. And that's kind of what shot me off into other countries. I knew I wanted to live internationally, but that was kind of the deciding factor. I was I need to kind of regroup, do something else. And and it's been an amazing experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's sad to hear when an accident derails anybody. That's part of why I always push travel in general. It's go now, because tomorrow you could have an accident and not be able to, right? So living in the now is critical, and you're doing that now. You're living in your now.
And that's so important. And part of the thing that my impetus was I'd lost a lot of family members because unfortunately the longer you're here, so are they. And so things can happen very quickly. And so it really helps you to appreciate your life. So I totally agree with you. Yeah.
And one of the things I liked, reading your book and looking at your what you had to say about yourself was you're talking about sort of empowering women at this point in their lives to go out and find themselves and do the things they want to do and not be held back. And I think there's a lot of power in that. I think that I watch my female friends struggle. We're all at an age where we start, as I call it, it's the transparency start disappearing. You're out of view. Every 5 years, you just become 5% less visible, right? So, by the time you hit 60, 70, you start to become, somebody can walk right through you and not know, right?
Right.
But I think also we're a generation of people who want to go out and still explore the world. We want to do things. And solo travel is growing. So, and for women, there's still the fear. There's still the, do I go somewhere am I safe? Guys have a sort of inert need way to be safe because they're not usually approached. Women are generally going to be targeted if they're solo travel. So I think it's great that you're looking at, you're providing that confidence in yourself and then letting that come out for others. Can you tell us some stories about, sort of how, as a woman, what is on it? Tell us a fun story about some solo travel you've had as a woman where you sort of think no guy would have ever had to deal with this.
Okay. So let me just say that you are actually correct, because I've had people call me brave for traveling solo. And I'm I'm not brave, but it's if I wait on people, you're just going to constantly be waiting. So it's I'm going to do it because I want to. And if I don't do it now, when will I? So yeah, I totally agree with that. And let's see, a fun story. My goodness.
Well, while you're thinking, you are brave, because most people will not step out of their bubble. They just won't. And it makes Jim and I've talked about this, and it a sad, like in our core, that people
Mhm.
won't step out of their bubble. But I've had people tell me, why would I go out of the country right now? And it's like, because there's a whole world out there. I mean, why would you not?
Well, this
Exactly.
is the problem with most Americans. They don't leave their country.
Right.
Go ahead, Tina.
A lot of people don't even leave their state. Like I'm originally from Des Moines, Iowa. Okay. And I went back for my
Sorry.
20th, I went back for my 20th year reunion and like everyone was still there. There was only a couple of us that had really left and stayed gone. And it was so interesting to me, because people tend to stay in a place because they're family. But it's like I think there's an electrical invisible fence around Iowa. Like people don't know they can leave. And it does not have like amazing weather. It's like hot and humid and like super cold and lots of snow. And I'm just like, oh my goodness.
I
So
think
yeah,
it's fear of discomfort. It's like when I get there, I'm not going to be as comfortable as I am here.
well, it's the fear of the unknown, and the American government is all about. I know. I was like, do I go
Go
here
right
or
ahead.
not?
Go right
I
ahead.
was like, do I go
Don't be
here?
afraid. Don't be afraid.
But
We will help you out.
thank you. So the American government really keeps people stuck because it needs you there. It's a capitalist society. It needs you there to buy things and to work and to be in debt. And it continually it continually keeps this ideology going that, oh my gosh, Mexico is so dangerous. And if you go there, you're going to get kidnapped and the drug cartel and everything like that. Whereas back in America, there's been like what, over 300 mass shootings already this year? So it's
We're like,
like,
what, 5 over the
I
weekend?
exactly. And I'm like, I really believe that if people went to Mexico, went to other countries, and realized that the people are friendly and wonderful and it's a different quality of life, a lot of people would be leaving America a lot sooner. Just
Yeah,
because
I agree with that.
it's such a heavy existence, and I'm very happy and proud to be an American. Like I absolutely am. Although there are times I have to be like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that happened. Like I'm American, but I'm so
The
sorry.
mindful American who's always walking around going, I'm sorry.
I'm so
I'm really
sorry.
sorry. I
I'm
didn't do it.
sorry
It's
we
not
did that.
me.
Exactly, exactly. And it's like I love being an American, but I've realized I love other countries more. I love going and experiencing that. And it's like I'm not afraid of getting Alzheimer's because when you have to like use Google Maps and kind of figure things out, and the thing about being in other countries and living there is some of the small things get really complicated and can take you all day. Whereas like when you know the language and stuff, it's easier. I'm not fluent in the other language besides English. Like I know a little bit of Spanish. I know enough to get by and I use Google Translate, but it's like, and I'm friendly. And I really believe that if you go to other countries, just be friendly.
Mhm.
Be friendly and they will help you. They do not need to speak your language to sell you something. But it's like if you go there and just speak louder in English because you don't know the language, that does not help.
You
That's not,
just become the rude
It
American.
doesn't. I know.
that
I
doesn't
know. And
endear you to people to just say it louder.
yeah, and people are just so lovely, like all over the world they are. And I did think of a story. So when I was in Luxor, Egypt, so I actually I lived in Turkey for 8 months also. I met somebody that was like a whole bad decision on my part. But I do love Turkey and I love Istanbul. But I flew into Hurghada, which is on the Red Sea. Didn't know anything about it, nothing at all. Went on a bus. There were these locals like, hey, you want to go to Luxor and go to an Egyptian wedding? And I'm like, of course I do. Like, why not? And then I'm like, oh, I'll go back to Hurghada and write my book. No. But Tina took a bus from Hurghada to Luxor with a complete stranger to Luxor, not knowing anything, ended up at a really bad Airbnb. And it was just like, but I met some locals and I was riding around Luxor on a motorbike with these locals. And they were just so incredibly lovely and courteous. So it's like, I don't know if a guy would get that same reception, but they like showed me around and took me all over and helped me arrange, tours and things. And it was like an amazing experience. And then I went to Cairo thinking Cairo is going to be this wonderful it's a big metropolitan city, thinking it's going to be really progressive. It's not for women. So I actually had the same dress on, which was above the knee, very modest dress. And I'm like, I'm going to go to the Nile. I love the Nile and seeing it at sunset. So I'm like, I took an Uber motorcycle to the Nile 5 minutes away. And you're not supposed to do that, evidently, in Cairo. You can do it in Luxor in the tourist towns, but in Cairo, it's a no-no. My Airbnb host was like, oh my God, you probably caused accidents. Like, I can't believe you were on a dress on a motorcycle. And I'm like, I did it in Luxor
Wow.
with, yeah. So it's interesting. So even in the same country, things can be different. And I didn't do any research before I went to Egypt. I'm just like, I'm going to go to Egypt and I'm going to see the pyramids.
Well, that's the other thing when I talk to travelers in the US or try to get people to travel in the US. You just said something interesting about, two different places in the same country.
Yeah.
You got the four corners of this country. I mean, seriously, you think about Florida and you think about Oregon, or you think about California and you think about Maine and everything in between. Like, yes, we're all Americans. We all speak the same language, but all that kind of stuff. But no, there's some
Very heavy
places I
cultures.
feel, I'm lived all over this country. I've lived in Oregon, I've lived in Kentucky, I've lived in Hawaii, I grew up in Virginia. I mean, I've been all over the place. There are some places
Mhm.
where I feel partially uncomfortable and very out of place. So I won't say where.
Right, right, right. Well, and it's interesting too. Like I have to say this because I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa. I lived in Chicago and I lived in Dallas too. And it's so interesting because people that live in Dallas and like move to Chicago, they don't realize when it snows you have to go to work. Because in Dallas, like if it even looks like it's gonna
Oh my
snow,
God!
like
If it's even the
everything
threat, if
shuts
there's
down.
anything, we
I
shut
know, which
down.
I love that about Dallas. I love that because it's
We're
like
very
I'm like
fragile.
yeah, it's like, "Oh, I can just stay home, like, this is great." But yeah, it's interesting when they go to Chicago, they're like, "Yeah, I just didn't go to work, my boss is calling me," and like, "What do you mean I have to show up?" So yeah, it's interesting, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that
I
is
was
very
I
true.
was teaching down here. I was a teacher for years. I was in education for years, and a guy had come down. He and I are still really close, but it was his first year teaching. He was from Pennsylvania, and they were calling for 2 inches of snow. And I said, "Well, we'll be out tomorrow." And he went, "Yeah, okay." I said, "Because I'm a jokester, as you can tell." And he's like, "No." I'm like, "No, seriously, we'll be out tomorrow." So we were out the next day, and the next day we came back, and he goes, "I don't understand." I said, "It's about infrastructure." I said, "Where you're from, it snows all the time." He's from Punxsutawney,
Mhm.
Pennsylvania. I'm like, "Where you from, it snows all the time." I said, "Where we are, we get maybe 2 snow events a year, so why would they spend millions and millions
Yeah,
on snow plows and all that, where you can just say, 'No school for a day,' and and the 3rd day you're ready to go." And it blew
exactly.
his mind. Now he's used to it, but it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you put 2 inches of snow on the ground, they're calling school here.
Exactly, and I was so upset when I moved down to Dallas from Chicago. The first year I was there was the year of the Super Bowl, and it had all the snow, and I was like, "I moved here to get away from this, like, what happened?" Like, I was just like, "Why?"
Yeah, and
So,
Dallas
yeah.
teases you with the highs and lows. It definitely
Oh
gets
god.
super hot. It's amazing when it snows here, but I think in a lot of our country, people are so into their own culture and neighborhood and area. I think you said something that I really want to bring up, which is the Americans are not really trained or taught or expected to go travel. In
It's why we're
fact,
not
in high school is probably about the only time you get any encouragement, right, to sort of go explore your life. And if you throw something like, "Well, I want to go to Paris" on that, all of a sudden it's like, "Well, no, I didn't mean explore your life," you know?
But well, and
exactly.
we're still stuck in and I mean this, I think we're still stuck in that '50s ethos of you throw the kids in the car and you drive to Yellowstone
Yeah.
or you drive to Florida and all that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you're right, yeah, I'm like, it's so crazy, my father was in the Merchant Marines for 14 years, and he touched
Wow.
every continent except Australia, he'd been everywhere, and then when it was time for us to travel, he's like, "Nah, I've been there, you don't need to go, that's not that
Mhm.
impressive." So I was not raised. My mom had wanderlust, but I was not raised that way. I didn't go on my first real trip until I was in my 20s because in my dad's mind, you worked. You didn't. We went on 2 vacations and we came home early on both of them because he was bored. So
Mhm. We didn't even go on vacations when I was a kid. We went to funerals. We literally went to funerals. We went on no vacations. And I think that is that older generation, like you work until you die and then you work some more and your work is your God. But yeah, no, and then my mother would take pictures of us in front of the open casket. And that was like completely normal in my family. I didn't know that was not normal until I was in my 30s. And I hadn't even been on a plane until I was about 30. That was the first time I was ever on a plane. Yeah. And my first international trip was not until I was 45. And then a couple years later, I'm like, screw it, I'm moving international. Like I want to go. And I've just always felt that. Like, do you just feel that? Like, even as a little kid, I was like, why can't we just move? Why can't we go someplace else? Like, why do we have to stay here? And I just don't know, but it's always been part of me. And so, like, for me, like moving around is totally normal. And I was a spiritual teacher for 7 years. And they would, like, as soon as you got comfortable, they would move you to a different school to kind of keep you uncomfortable and to not, yeah. But it's interesting because I think everyone should travel. I think it's the best education you can give yourself. It's the best investment you're ever going to make in yourself because then you can meet people from other walks of life and you can experience new foods. Like the new foods is amazing, and just like enjoy it because people wait. wait. They're like, oh, I'm going to wait until I retire. I'm going to do this or that. And we are not guaranteed anything. We are not guaranteed retirement. We are not guaranteed good health. And it breaks my heart when I go to Europe and I see people like struggling with strollers or walkers or in wheelchairs and trying to get around. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, because I was a massage therapist and I decided I was going. I didn't get paid, if you don't work, you don't get paid. And so I was like, I'm going for 3 weeks. I'm to New York, Barcelona, and Italy for my first trip. And I'm like, this might be the only time I'm doing this, so I'm going to do it. And I bootstrapped the whole thing. Like I did couch surfing and I did hostels and a lot of interesting stories there, let me tell you. But I had the best time. I celebrated my 45th birthday in a hostel in Rome, and we all went out and did the South Rome at night. Like, how cool is that? Like, I will always have that memory, always.
And that you've hit the key point, Jim, and I've talked about this endlessly. So if you've listened to this, by the way, if you like what you're hearing, like, subscribe, share, cost your friends, get everybody you can on board. Thank you very much for that. But we've talked about travel is all about the memories. Like, when I said this a couple episodes ago, right before you take your last breath, was it, how big your house was, how nice your car was, or it was all the places you went, all the people you saw and met and all the things you touched and all that.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, I hate to say this, but Dallas was not my favorite place to live. Like, I just never resonated with me. And for the longest time, I was like, I want to live in Dallas. I want to live in Dallas. I need to move to Dallas. For 7 years, I was saying that. And finally, I was like, fuck it, I'm moving to Dallas, put everything in a van and move to Dallas, even though I didn't really like it. And so it's like, even when I would have those days in Dallas, I could be like remembering being in Paris. And Paris is not my favorite city either, but I'd be like, oh my gosh, being in Paris, Montmartre, and like eating, the quiche and the baguettes and stuff, So it's like those memories are what you're going to have. You're not going to remember whether or not you got the newest version of iPhone. You're not going to freaking remember that when you're 90, but you will remember the people you met, the experiences you had. Like, Venice is one of my favorite places.
I was going to ask you, what you opened the door. What is your favorite city?
Okay, that's so hard. Like, I do love Venice and I want to go back. But I also really love Istanbul. Like, I do love Istanbul. And I want to go back to Egypt. Like, it's so hard to say a favorite city because I feel like when I travel, like, I love all the places because they're all different and unique. And I've been to over 30 towns in Mexico and they're all different, which is so amazing. But it's like, I'm just like, oh my gosh. So it's like, I love Venice, but yeah, there's just so many. And when you're there, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing. And when I first went to Istanbul, I did not like it. I had been traveling for a while because my dog died and I stayed in Europe. And I'm like, I need to go and decompress. And like, well, you need to go to Istanbul and go to this touristy place. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. And then I crossed the sea and went to the Asian side and I end up finding neighborhoods I loved. So it's really interesting. Even if you think you don't like a place, going to like a different part, you're like, I love this.
But that's true, I think, even if someone visits the U.S. I mean, if you drop into the U.S. and you go to Chicago and then you go to San Francisco, you see something, right? But if you go to like Des Moines or you go to, Louisiana or Alabama, you're going to see a very different America. And I think part of that experience should be that not only in your own country, but you should go to different places. Don't go to just the hotspot in each country, right? Because sometimes I have found the hotspot's great. It's great to go to Paris, but go to Marseille instead. Or if you're in England, go up to Tardis, or, just go other places than where everybody goes. Sometimes we get stuck in everybody goes to London. I'm going to London. London was my first overseas trip. It was my first time to leave the country, right? And I remember being excited and scared. And they speak the language or some version of it. I think it's good to encourage people to get out of their shells, get out of their homes.
Well, because like we did a whole episode on Scotland. My heart is in Scotland. If my wife came home today and said, let's move to Scotland, I'd be packing. But no, I mean, I loved Edinburgh, I loved Glasgow and all that. But Inverness, which is a little tiny town outside of it's about 8 miles from Loch Ness, and it just spoke to me. And it's not a big tour. I mean, people go there, but it's not a big tourist destination like Edinburgh or Glasgow or something like that. But yeah, if somebody gave me a free plane ticket to Scotland right now, I'd want to go to Inverness. It's that, just beautiful to me. But
and I love that. I love what you guys are saying because it's so important, first of all, to leave yourself extra time when you're traveling because you're going to find different places. People are going to have those recommendations. Like, I don't even plan stuff. Like, I planned my first trip, but I don't plan stuff anymore because you'll meet people along the way and you want to take those detours and those, see those extra things and like listen to your heart, because each we're all different and different places call to us, you know? Like I have no desire whatsoever to go to Scotland. Like it's not even on my list. Australia's not on my list. And that could change. But like, you know, going to like Thailand and Asia and India, those were on my list. And when I tell people I want to go to India, they're like, "Ooh, really?" I'm like, "Yeah. Yeah, I love yoga and Ayurvedic medicine and Indian food. Like I want to go to India." And they're like, you know, as a single female, I'm like, "Yeah, I want to go." So
Mhm.
it's like interesting how we all have these different
Mhm.
desires in our heart. And I do believe that there's a reason that we have those callings. And I think it changes like depending on what season you're in your life, you know, because there might
Yes.
be a time when I'm like, "Oh, I really want to go to Scotland." You know, it's just not now.
I think it's great that you said the one thing you said there I really want to highlight is that at different points in your life, you have different interests in travel. When you're young, like when I was younger, my interest in travel was to go see the party scene in every country because I was a party producer, an event producer, right? So I was going for big events like Mardi Gras and things like that,
Oh,
pride
wow.
celebrations. But they were big, right? Because I wanted to experience it somewhere else so I could bring some of whatever magic they had back to my events. Then as I got older, it was about seeing sites in history, right? So going to Italy, going to Rome and to see Pompeii and all those things. And now I'm at that point where I love a good luxury kickback, do nothing vacation. I can't necessarily afford them, but thanks to my lovely benefactor who helps me occasionally, can. But you know, it's sort of she's gotten me into exploring more things in the water. I've
Mhm.
never was a big snorkeling person, and now I love to go snorkeling. So I think, you know, you learn things, you try things, you go further in different places. One thing I always try to tell my clients is don't just go into the city, dive into the city, go farther in,
Yeah.
go way in, go find that little place that's talked about in some guide or some magazine. Don't sit where everybody else sits. Get away.
Mhm.
Because I think there's so much to be seen in the culture of this world that does educate, makes you smarter. And I think it sends you home a more round person, right? So that when you hear something like, you know, everybody who comes from this country's a murderer, and you're like, no, that's not true, right?
Well, we've talked about that too. If you live like Des Moines, I'll guarantee you there are places in Des Moines to this day that you won't go in after dark. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just there's that place everywhere, and it's interesting. Been percolating as we've been talking. Going
Mhm.
back to what you
Mhm.
said about capitalism and all that, without diving too deep into that, I do think there is sort of and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't mean this as an organized way necessarily.
Right.
I just think it's the American ethos. There's sort of a manufactured fear of the other and that really translates into. It's like almost like most Americans have like this really large scale agoraphobia, and it's like, oh, I'm going to stay in my my town, my county, my state, my country. And yeah, because you're right, there are all these horror stories, you know, and I'm going to go off a tangent a little bit. I blame it on the 24-hour news cycle. And what I mean by that is most of the news we get from foreign countries is about bad things that happen. We don't hear about all the great things that happen day in and day out and everything. We hear about that one mass shooting. And like you said, we've had like 250 or whatever the heck it is this year.
Three.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, we've had all these mass shootings, which are horrible. But I feel like we're much more dangerous here right now than a lot of other countries. But because we only get the bad news from other countries, that people glean on and they're like, see. And it's like, well, you know, there's 365 days a year, and there was one shooting over there because they don't have any guns. You know, 364 is safer. And if you weren't in that specific spot, 365 didn't affect you either. So, sorry.
Isn't it
It's not.
interesting to think that we've got travel warnings coming to the United States we've never had?
Mhm.
We got countries
Mhm.
saying to their citizens, don't go to the US. And I don't think a
Yeah.
lot has changed. It's just more visible. Like I think we've always had gun violence. We've always had murders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just think that we've done a good job of hiding a lot of it. It wasn't top story. And with everything else going to hell in a handbasket over here, you know, let's
Mhm.
make sure we tell you, you shouldn't go to America right now because we don't know what's going to happen if you go.
Right.
Exactly. Well, and I have a friend who's Canadian and she has a house in Canada and one in Florida that she inherited. And her friends, every time she goes to Florida, they're like, "Oh my gosh, don't go to America," because they see all the things, all the bad things,
Yeah.
and it just gets amplified. And people don't realize what is going on in America. And America is a great country, like it is. And I'm very proud to be an American. Like, if you're listening, I want you to know that. But
As are we. We are too. We're proud
exactly,
Americans,
we're
but
good. But it's like it's working on such an old ideology, like from the 50s, where America was really this amazing, innovative country, and we are not really that anymore. And people in other countries really used to take cues from us and want to be like us. But now there's other countries doing even more interesting things. Like I see the stuff going on in Japan, and I'm like, oh, that's so fascinating. Like they're living in the future, you know,
yeah,
and
you know,
we're
it's
we're
interesting.
still trying to figure out homelessness. You
We
know,
are
it's like
I
definitely
looked
there's
at that too with like England used to be the center of everything at one point,
yeah.
right? Every great nation has its time in its spotlight. It's going to always move on, right? So I think the English people did a pretty good job of allowing things to transition for somebody else to have the seat, but they kept their country vibrant. It's still alive, right? When I talked to you, when I'm pre-interviewed, we talked about being in Colombia and people would have an immediate fear. Oh my God, you're in Colombia. There must be cartels everywhere because that's what we hear, right? Everybody's a prisoner. Everybody's a cartel member. And it's like, geez, I've been to Colombia. I didn't get one cartel talking to me. In fact, the lady at the jewelry store tried to hook me up with somebody, so.
Exactly. And it's like when you go to other countries, you're going to experience them. And if you go there looking for bad things, you're going to find them.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it just depends on where your focus is, because there are some things going on here in Medellin where people come here for not such great reasons, and that unfortunately influences how people think of the city. But it really depends on what your intention is, what you want. Like if you want to go somewhere and be an asshole, then you're going to find people that are going to show you a really bad experience. But if you have the intention of going someplace and being like, I really want to enjoy this and experience and meet people, you're going to have amazing experiences. Like I am so directionally challenged and geographically challenged. Like I booked a flight to Aruba not realizing it was an island. Okay. I just like, because I had heard about it. I knew I wanted to go there and I did look at a map at one point, but then I booked it and I was like, oh yeah, it is an island. Okay, great. But
Yep.
you have to just like take those aha moments and those intuitive moments and be like, let's do this. Because if you live in that fear and that doubt and that like, oh, someone's gonna get me in the cartel and like I'm gonna get kidnapped, you're gonna attract really shitty experiences. But like
Or
get
you
out
never
there.
go anywhere.
Exactly. But get a freaking passport because Americans don't have passports. So get a freaking passport. That's step one.
I think
Get a
that's in
passport.
our funny clips, right?
Yes.
Yeah, get a passport. Because then when your friends are like, "Hey, I'm doing this. You want to go?" You're not gonna be like, "Oh, I don't have my passport." You can be like, "Yes, I want to go." Because I have people that are like, when I was talking about going to Italy for the first time, they're like, "Oh, I want to go," and I'd be like, "Okay, well, here's all the information." I would like wait on them. Finally, I was like, "You know what? I booked my stuff. Here's what I'm doing. You can go if you want. You can come with me." And I had this friend. She was like, "Oh, well, this and that and this and that." And it ends up she could have gone because she ended up getting like severance pay from her job, and she could have literally gone with me. It would have been perfect timing, but she still didn't go. So it's like we have all the excuses and reasons not to travel. Like I have kids, I'm getting too old, I don't have enough money. Like if you really want to do it, you can figure it out. Like if there's a will, there's a
Absolutely.
way. Like you do not have to stay stuck in that.
You're right. And I think most travelers have a healthy fear of missing out. Like I have a fear of missing out on cool stuff. And that's why I've had a passport since I was in my early 20s because, there's always that fantasy of somebody calls up and says, especially when you're young and dumb and don't have any real attachments other than your job, which you don't care about anyway. Somebody say, "Hey, we're going to Mexico for the weekend. You want to go?" It's like, "I have my passport. Let's go." That kind of thing. I've always said that fear of missing out on something really cool. Now, nobody's ever done that. So if anybody wants to call me up and say, "Hey, do you want to go to,
Exactly.
Scotland for a week?" Yeah, I'm there. But no, just that, yeah, it's that always that ability to go, that willingness to go.
So
Exactly. And you
everybody,
have
just if you're just joining us or you're tuning in, thank you for joining us here on Life in the Baggage Claim. Of course, we are with our esteemed guest, Tina Coleman, today, who is really the author of a book called 50 Fabulous and Fuckable. She is sharing stories of travel, have quite a life journey. She's reinvented herself, and she's sharing that with us here today. Just if this is your episode, you fall in love with us, that's great. Please do like and subscribe and share this with your friends. And just as a little foreshadowing, and we'll go back to the conversation, we do have some other guests coming up who are going to do some other interesting stories. So we are going to talk with a gentleman who runs a wellness retreat using psychedelics.
nice.
So we're going to learn how to take a real trip. And then we're going to talk to a wonderful person out of Germany, and she's done bicycle trips, and she's a language lead, a teacher and such. So she's got some interesting stories. So we got people coming in that we're meeting with. So if you feel you've got something to contribute to Life in the Baggage Claim, definitely reach out through Podmatch. And now I'm going to go back to Tina, and we're going to do closing remarks.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, I will say on the note that you have a speaker coming that does a wellness retreat, if you have a chance to do psychedelics, say yes. I will just say that.
Amen, sister. Amen.
Thank you for playing.
Just say yes. For me, like, okay, I am sober. I've been sober almost 7 years now. And I was just like going to Mexico. It's like there are psychedelics because they're very into nature. So there is ayahuasca, there is peyote, there are mushrooms. It is, and it's part of a spiritual experience. It's not just like, oh, let's go get fucked up and do this. And I remember talking to my Ayurvedic therapist. I'm like, I don't know if I should like do this. Like somebody offered me mushrooms. Like, I don't know because I'm sober. And she's like, my husband had the most amazing aha moment when he took mushrooms. And I was like, oh. And then I did my first peyote ceremony because friends in America, they were looking at these retreats that were like thousands of dollars. And I was in Cipolite, Mexico, which is a clothing optional beach. That's where I live. And there was a women's circle going on that was the peyote ceremony. And I was like, okay,
Why
because
not?
it does help with addiction issues and pain and things like that because I've been in car accidents and I have, I am sober and I wanted to try it for those reasons. And I'm glad I did. Like, I don't like the throwing up part, but like, and I'm not a nature person. I'm not like a big nature person. So being outside all night around a fire, sleeping basically in dirt and having to use an outhouse, I was like, I've done it 3 times. So, I mean, obviously I get past all that because my worst fear is like walking in the woods alone at night. And I literally had to do that because I missed the car going. And I'm like, I'm having to do this by myself. So, yeah. So you kind of have to move past some of those fears to do the things you really want to do.
Well, I
Exactly.
yeah.
think there's so much we said about psychedelics and sort of
Yeah.
allowing your mind to open up. We are all very tightly wound as people, right? Especially Americans, we're very tightly. And if you take a moment to maybe do it in a controlled environment where you're safe, yeah, you should try it because I too have had some amazing experiences and, highly encourage friends of mine to go give it a shot when they're struggling because you never know what's going to come of it.
The one time I did mushrooms was at Palenque, which is an ancient ruin site. They were selling them in the parking lot. And I probably should not have done that because then I was kind of like wandering around.
I always say when I feel like I'm wandering around somewhere from in those experiences, I probably just walked the small little corner for the whole night.
Yeah.
Somebody like looking over there. There's this guy just keeps going around.
Exactly. And my hair was bright blue at the time. Like I've dyed all these different colors, like pink, purple, lavender. Like it's been all these different colors. So I was like dark blue hair and I'm just kind of like wandering around. So I'm like, I only did like a little bit, but still.
And the locals be like, what's wrong with this lady?
All right, Tina, pitch your book, pitch what's going on in your life. What's coming up next?
Okay, great. So it's 50 Fabulous and Fuckable, and it is to inspire and empower women to travel and live their best lives because 50 is just the beginning, not the end. And you can find it on beacons.ai/transform be courageous. I'm on TikTok and Instagram as Transform Be Courageous. And it will be on Amazon. So you can actually pre-buy it on Amazon. It will be launching officially December 30th. Keep your fingers crossed on that one.
Will you be doing an Audible that you read?
Yes, I will be. That'll be coming in the spring. I'm also have plans to turn it into Spanish and some other languages as well.
Awesome.
So, because I really want to empower and inspire all women to be like, this is the beginning. It's like just because you can have gray hair, it does not mean you're not sexy anymore.
I'm going to say this to the guys out there too. Read these kind of books. Don't be afraid to pick up something that a woman writes about experiencing life. Because we've got enough that we need to deal with that we should be learning how women do it. They probably do it better than we do.
Agreed.
And
you're probably talking to the 2 biggest feminists you'll meet here. So.
Exactly.
I'm a feminist because my wife tells me I am.
I love it. And I mean, when people hear the name of the book, they're like, I want to read that. It doesn't matter their age, sex, anything. Like, I want to read this book. But it's like, it is all about self-love and being passionate and going and taking those risks, because life is just way too short. And you don't want to be like, oh, I wish I would have. I would rather be the things I think I might regret not doing are the things I want to do.
And I think both of you make a very, very strong point in what you just said and what Jim just said. And I think it all comes down when we talk about travel and other cultures, and everything else, and men versus men, and not versus women, but men.
Right. We're different.
Men versus women in perception. I think it all comes down to understanding. And I think if we're willing to understand each other, we get so much further, and then extrapolate that out. If we're willing to understand other cultures and other people, that's where I think real richness in our life comes from. I truly do. I don't mean to sound all, cheesy, but I truly believe.
I believe that we would have less conflict in the world if more people traveled. Because if you understand your neighbor, you're less likely to want to bomb them.
Agreed.
I also think that could just be if people just in general would talk to their neighbors.
Yes.
We need to relearn how to be social, to be able to disagree and be okay, to argue and not be mad, and to have a conversation where we listen, because nobody listens anymore, right?
Exactly.
So I think, Tina, you've given us some really sage advice today. Your stories are amazing. I'm so glad we had you on.
Absolutely.
And I definitely think we could see you again sometime and hear how being that age and that place is good for you, where you were at that point.
Exactly.
So with that, thank you folks for joining us on this episode of Life in the Baggage Claim. As always, we're happy to have you here to help the podcast grow by liking, sharing, and subscribing. And Chuck, I'll give you the final pass.
Well, Tina, thank you for, again, fulfilling Jim's dream. When we first started talking about a podcast, he said, let's do a podcast. And the second phrase out of his mouth was, let's have guests. So thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you. I agree with Jim. It's always enlightening to hear other people's point of views. And I applaud you for, you don't think you're brave, but I think you are. I applaud you for getting out of your bubble. I applaud anyone for getting out of their bubble and risking and trying different things. And I see the smile on your face, and everyone watching sees the smile on your face.
And for those of you listening,
those of you listening, she's smiling. Those risks have obviously paid off in a big deal. So thank you. That's what we talk about almost every week in some way. So thank you for being part of that. Do you have anything to say to nice folks before we leave?
Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, I really appreciate it. And I think if we're all just a little bit braver, we'll have the lives we really want. Instead of just dreaming about them, we can actually have them.
Sage words. On that, folks, thank you. We'll see you next time.